nanti saya share screen aja mungkin waktunya, Kak. Okay. Is there any other questions? If there is no question, I will count backward from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Kak Almira, you're the first to go. You have 15 minutes to deliver your speech. The floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Kak.
Okay. Okay. And wait a second. I'm just going to drink. Countdown-nya udah langsung mulai ya? It's not started when I'm start to speak.
Mulainya pas lo ngomong aja.
Oke, panitia tolong ya di reset lagi 15 menit. Oke, thank you. Okay, so feminism, a word that is seemingly yet not supposedly polarizing. Shrouded with different meanings and interpretation, feminism at its core is the political, cultural, and economic movement aimed to establish equal rights and legal protection of women. A movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. Those that I have mentioned are basic human rights, right? So that every man and woman can hold equally. So why something that is so self-evident could be so polarizing? Why does it have to divide us? People often make the mistake of thinking that something is very obvious to them and it will be obvious to others. What women perceive as an issue isn't that big of a matter of that for a man. It is clear to me now how that came to be. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. To achieve the main goal of feminism, we must clearly articulate the barriers that have deeply ingrained and impeded women to reach equality with men in every culture and every level of society. In many cases, we forgot to ask ourselves for which type of women whose right are we fighting for? Is it for affluent women who are already established and stable in income, or is it for women who live in 20,000 rupees a day? Women who, no matter how hard they work, will always be trapped in poverty. According to the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, the disparity between the percentage of Indonesians who are illiterate is still quite high, especially in the rural areas. The data shows that men are 5% more literate than women. The disparity is the byproduct of poverty, which limits women from getting the basic educational support needed to reach the equality with men and give them the freedom as well as independence. For who doesn't seek freedom and independence, our freedom that leads to our independence is what defines us as a country. History has written that we didn't go gentle into that good night. We wanted our freedom. We fought for our independence. Many tales are told, and the sacrifice of our fallen heroes has blessed us with a country that merited its own independence. Yet with full confidence that if current news is anything to go by, the fight should not end there. We live in Indonesia, the largest archipelago country in the world, a myriad of diverse cultural and languages, under the same red and white flag. A country with so much to be proud of, it is unfair for our neighbors. Our identity and pride as an Indonesian can never be understated. This, after all, is what many call nationalism. It is the behavior of a particular nation group, wherein they care about their national identity and are willing to maintain its sovereignty. The spirit of nationalism is unity. People who are willing to speak and fight for their freedom. Those who are willing to shed for their independence. So nationalism, feminism, they are not so different after all. Even by definition, those who overly glorify their country from the rest and those who have excessively prejudice towards another sex are called chauvinism. While the feminist movement can be downplayed by saying that it is merely an ideology that benefits one side of the cause, I have established that feminism and nationalism are actually very much alike. Feminism aims to assign and set the economic, political, and social equality among genders, and feminism is about all genders having equal rights and opportunities to express their idea or even to have leadership. Feminism is not a movement to hate men or women is better than men, but simply a movement to have equal rights for all the genders. 50% of us, 50% of Indonesians are female. However, there are still a lot of harsh realities that Indonesian women face every day, especially in the marginalized communities. I would make 3 points of this. The first one is the unsettling rate of child marriage. In 2018 alone, it was estimated that there were 1.2 million women who aged around 20 until 24 years old who got married before the age of 18, which made Indonesia listed among the other 10 countries with the highest absolute number of child marriage. Children who live in poor families, rural areas, and have poor education are more prone to child marriage. And based on the statistic alone, there are a lot of people, based on the statistics that I gave you, a lot of people are still asking, so what? The problem lies when young married couples accidentally got pregnant early. Pregnant women under the age of 17 are more inclined to have a medical complications both for the mother and the child, resulting in maternal and infant mortality, premature births, underweight babies, and so on until a postpartum depression because they are mentally and economically underprepared. Data by Statistics Indonesia also revealed that provinces with high percentage of child marriage synchronously recorded a high prevalence of stunting, which is a disease of impaired growth due to poor nutrition. Then congratulations, this nation just grew the number of disabled people in our country when they could actually prevent it. The second point that I want to tell you is that there are still a lot of high growth, very high numbers of people who got gender-based violence cases, especially during Corona outbreak. So what is GBV? What is gender-based violence? It is violence targeted at a person because of that person gender or violence that affects person of a particular gender disproportionately. The example of GBV are like physical harm, sexual harm, psychological harm, and economic harm. According to Statistics Indonesia survey in 2020, 1 in 3 Indonesian women had experienced violence in their lifetime by their spouses or someone that they know. So that's around 45 million Indonesians that had experienced violence in their life. These cases stem from unequal power relations between men and women. For some of us, the stay-at-home order should be an opportunity to reconnect with the other family members. But however, for some women, this restriction has heightened their risk of being caged up with their abusers. Up to July 2020, there have been almost 15,000 recorded cases of violence against women. The highest contributor is physical abuse, and then followed by sexual abuse, psychological abuse, and so on and so on. But then again, recorded cases usually only account for 10% of the overall cases that were happening in Indonesia. If we run the math, we could estimate that there are 150,000 cases of women being the victim, meaning that there are 150,000 men that were being the abusers. Again, I want this to credit that there are also cases where men were being victims, which ironically, only 2% of the cases that were being recorded or reported. So if you ask me what this has to do with nationalism, the answer is super clear. How can this country expect for its netizens to be a free nation for everybody when actually there are more than 200,000 of us who are being caged up and being abused by at their own home right now? The last thing that I want to tell you that is the unfulfillment of the rights of women workers. Life as a female worker in Indonesia is not an easy matter. There are still many women workers' rights that are not fulfilled, both within formal and informal jobs. It is not uncommon for women to become victims at work. This is reflected in the rampant cases of abuse of women, especially female workers who work in labor-intensive sectors. 44% of female workers in Indonesia admitted to having experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. And so what other rights that are unfulfilled by the government? So the first one is gender remuneration gap. Based on the data displayed by the Central Statistic Agency in 2020, female workers earn 23% lower wages than their male colleagues who have the same workload. In the past 10 years, there hasn't been much change in this issue. This is because the income generated by working women is only considered as an additional income and not the main breadwinner when in real life. There are a lot of women who need to feed their children and by themselves and have to pay their own expenses. And the second one is there are still a lack of guarantee and protection of the women workers right in the informal sector. So according to the data from the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection and also the Central Bureau of Statistics, in 2017, the percentage of women aged 15 years and older are overworking in the informal sector was around 61%. This high statistics is unfortunately not accompanied by the fulfillment of the rights of women workers as provided for women working in the formal sector. Informal sector workers tend to not receive aspects of legal protection such as severance pay, minimum wages, health and social security, and also other types of legal protections. Therefore, from the concerns that I've stated since the beginning, what could the government do for its own people? For me, there's only about 2 points of responsibility that they could do. The first one is to pass the bill of elimination of sexual violence, which is RUU PKS. Indonesia already has a draft law related to elimination of sexual violence since 6 years ago. The Bill of Sexual Violence comprehensively and specifically discuss what sexual violence is, the type of sexual violence, what actions are classified as sexual violence, and so on and so on. The cases and the problems that I have stated before should be a wake-up call for the government to progress towards protecting women's rights by stating to put the bill of sexual violence as one of their top priorities, seeing that the urgency of the high numbers of sexual violence cases that occurred, including in the workplace. This bill should be passed as positive law. But even after more than 6 years of ratification delay, in 2020, the bill of sexual violence was once again withdrawn from the 2020 prolectness based on the difficulty when discussing the contents of the bill. If we look deeper into the bill itself, this law would not only help women, but also men. We know that there are a lot of cases where men being the victim, but just because he is a man, they are men, they're supposed to be able to defend themselves, and they're supposed to be gentle and loving to women. By the end of the day, when something happens to him or them, he cannot defend himself. I will give you a case. For instance, there is an 18-year-old man who has a so-called, for instance, sugar mommy, who happens to be 20 years older than him. The money that he gathered from this lady would help him to go to college. And the initial deal was she only needs someone to talk to and maybe to eat lunch or dinner with. And then one day, this lady asked him to come to her flat. And little did he know it was a trap for him. She forced him to pleasure the lady when he didn't actually want it to. Then the lady gave him a little booze, for instance, and once he got tipsy, she forced him to do it. Once they are done, he keeps denying and asks her if he could go home, but the lady threatens him. If he does not stay, she would tell his family and friends about their relationship, for instance, or maybe she could report him to the police that she was just being harassed by him. So this kind of cases actually a lot. This happens a lot in Indonesia. So at this point, what should he do? If the bill of the elimination of sexual violence is passed, he could directly go to the police and tell them what happened. But currently, since we have nothing to protect us in this matter, he could only go home and cry. But then again, men are not supposed to cry, aren't they? The second thing that the government could do is actually to revise the omnibus law. One of the rights that women have right now is that we are allowed to have a menstrual leave for a maximum of 2 days. It is regulated in the manpower law. However, this version of the bill problematizes in paragraph 2 of the article, which states that the implementation of the provisions will be regulated in work agreements, company regulations, and also collective working agreements. This results in the possibility for companies to cover up or even complicate the requirements for obtaining the rights to menstrual leave. It can be seen that the regulations of the right of women workers in positive law alone is not sufficient to guarantee that these rights will be fulfilled. Ironically, the situation is exacerbated by the plan to ratify the job creation regulations or UU Cipta Kerja using the omnibus law system. If you guys don't know what the omnibus law system is, it's actually a method of making regulations that combine several rules with different substances into one rule in one legal product. Hence, since the Cipta Kerja omnibus law was passed already, several laws had been replaced, one of which was the manpower law. The problem with the amendment of the manpower law through the Cipta Kerja bill is the abolition of regulations on the rights of women workers, such as the rights to maternity leave and the rights to have a menstrual leave. So, ladies, your rights have just been abolished 2 days ago. So, to conclude, feminism should be aimed to fight the injustice faced by women and any other marginalized and oppressed communities. As we can see, there are still many Indonesian women who are underrepresented and whose problem needs to be solved. The burden that they are facing every day are heavily entrenched from poverty, ignorance, doubt, stigma, religious values, and gender bias. It is further entrenched by the culture that suppresses women for speaking up. The culture that women are in have made them turn pretense into an art form. We need a collective movement to encourage all kinds of women to have power, capabilities, authorities, and also privileges to participate. While women around Indonesia are trying to gain their own freedom and autonomy, imagine yourself living in these ironic truths and think what we could do to support them. Remember, there is no morality without empathy. The government must realize that this issue is of the essence. I implore that we seek for fierce alternative solutions in order to reduce, even eliminate the proclivity of social imbalance, which could lead to the disunity of the nation itself. For we cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. My name is Almira Latina from batch 2017 with the speech title of Feminism, a New Resolve for Nationalism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kak Almira, for delivering such a great speech. The next will be followed by 2 minutes constructing feedback session by the judge. Okay, Kak Rakardo,
Okay,
you can
so
give
basically this, since I only have 2 minutes to construct a feedback to your entire 50-minute speeches, so I'm afraid this kind of going to be kind of short, so bear with me. So here's the thing. First thing first, you have to, according to the committee, they said that the theme of today's speeches is going to be about nationalism, right? Well, meanwhile, I applaud you for being able to tell me what kind of harm that is coming, what kind of harm that is one's facing in almost every day of their life. What is feminism, so on and so forth. But however, you have to make a better aligning between nationalism and feminism in the first place. It's not enough by saying, look, nationalism is an identity and unity and people who are willing to fight, so on and so forth. And by definition, that is the same with feminism. No, that is not enough. That's like saying there's a water issue exists in World Hunger Conference. Even though there is a slight correlation, you actually need more context on how feminism will mean losing nationality in the first place in order for us to see, oh, look, there's a problem in nationalism if we don't solve this feminism issue. Also, you can also explain on how we've been complicit all this time towards this feminism kind of thing. Like, for example, on how Black Lives Matter movement seems prevalent right now, even though the problem's already existing since the beginning of the time, but people just start to acknowledge this kind of thing now. And the same with idea of feminism, rather than trying to explain why women are treated unfair throughout your entire speech, it's better to lean forward identity issue. Like, for example, on how women are more attached to the male counterpart in marriage, on how women are less likely to have a job compared to men in a household, or to a more extreme cases, like on how Stockholm syndrome is more prevalent in women rather than their male counterparts, so on and so forth. Second point is that throughout your speeches, I do feel like that this is a some sort of petty attack towards privilege spectrum that is men. When it can be more, don't just saying that, look, there's a problem from A to Z. You have to acknowledge that the goal of feminism is inclusion. And this won't happen if you start to antagonize a group of men in the first place. Also, you need to consider the fact that some men are aware and some men are not aware, especially in places like Indonesia, where men are most likely not aware of this kind of thing. I remember the other days, I kind of argued with my friend when he said that women are privileged, women are given privilege in his religion. That he said women are given, like, let's say, cuti libur pas lu hamil, women dibilang suci pas lagi haid, so on and so forth. But that's not it. We are not putting women in different pedestal and call it the end of the day, or call it a better privilege when it is a necessity. You have to be able to tell me what is privilege and what is necessity for this kind of woman, for a better understanding of what is privilege in the first place, what the woman needs to be included in the first place, so on and so forth. I think that's it for me. If you have, sorry. I think that's it for me for my feedback. So gue nggak ada pertanyaan.
Okay, thank you, Kak.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kak Ricardo. The next will be questioning Q&A session with the audience. So if the audience has any questions.
Hold on. Sorry. I forgot at one point. So
Okay.
Toward the end of your speeches, I do get this point though. You started to spitting out some policy on how women are treated unfairly, some policy to prove that women are treated unfairly, like, let's say, this policy does to that policy to omnibus law. But while gue senang lo ngomongin omnibus law di sini, tapi but however it is unnecessary because you've been saying since the beginning of your speeches that, look, there is this problem that women are not treated fairly, that
Sorry,
women
Kak,
suffer
time is
throughout their
up.
life. Okay, sorry.
Apa, Kak? Tambahin aja.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's sorry. Okay, itu gue lanjutin ya. That women's been suffering all throughout their life, but for you to reverberate this kind of idea throughout your speeches that is 15 minutes long, it's too much. I don't need to be reminded of the things that you already said in the first or second minutes. So it's kind of like a waste of time.
Okay,
Udah itu dong.
thank you, Kak.
Okay, thank you, Kak Ricardo.
Yeah.
The next would be questioning session with the audience. So if the audience has any question, just type speech. Or just like unmute your mic and ask the question directly, it's fine. Is there any question? Okay, if there's no question from the audience, we'll just go on to the next participant. So the next participant is Salsa from class of 2019. Salsa, you have 15 minutes to deliver your speech. The time start when you first speak.
Oh ya, BTW, sorry ya, gue nggak bisa nyalain kamera gue, soalnya wifi gue lagi lambat banget. Kalau bisa gue nyalain, gue bakal nge-lag.
Okay, Kai, it's fine.
Okay. Honorable judges, committee, and also ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I want to ask you to think about what comes to your mind when you hear the words Indonesia, and what comes to your mind when you hear the words nationalism. Of course, there will be so many things come up to your mind right away if I ask you about Indonesia. The food, the culture, the nature, the people, and also, I bet, the government. When I ask you about nationalism, I know you will think about the definition of nationalism that has been taught to us repeatedly by our teacher for more or less 12 years in our school days. The basic definition that we all learn in our school days. Then, let me fuse those two words into two questions. What would be your answer if I ask you, do you really love Indonesia? And are you really proud to be an Indonesian? Okay, don't answer it right away. Please keep that answer in your mind. And for now, I'm gonna talk about my question. Why should I love Indonesia? Last Monday, the government decided to legalize the RUU Cipta Kerja, and almost everyone in this country went crazy. And of course, me too. There were many demonstrations that kept happening from the laborers, students, and also the society in the social media. It all happens even in this pandemic situation. The corona hasn't been better yet in this country. Based on the data by the Worldometers, on Monday, 5th October 2020, Indonesia is in the 22nd position in the world regarding the number of coronavirus cases. And yet, we face this too. By the political and humanity aspects, I regret what has been happening to this country. Okay, I'm not gonna talk much about the politics aspect here. What I'm gonna talk about is the nationalism aspect that we as a nation are facing. I remember having a midnight talk with my dad in my backyard that night after I read the news, and also I read the bill too. That night, after having a few talks with my dad about what has been happening to this country lately, I told my dad, yeah, this country's policy is so messed up. If I could and I have the ability to, I would really love to change my nationality. Surprisingly, I got a very strong reaction from my dad after stating those statements. My dad looked at me deeply and responded, okay, you may hate the government, the policy, the system, or even the people in general here, but don't hate your own country. Other than those people, there are so many amazing people who have been sacrificing their life just to defend and build this country. And maybe you just don't realize Indonesia has given you so many things. He stopped for a while and he continued his words. Even though I'm not someone in this country, I'm not even in government. And don't get me wrong, I also hate the policy here, just the same as you. But even if I had the right to choose where I want to spend the rest of my life, I will definitely choose to be here. Never in my life I regretted being born as an Indonesian. Those words coming out from my dead mouth that night, maybe it sounds simple, but for me, that few words hit me very deeply. Then I realized growing up has changed the way I think about my country. It has changed me to the way I am thinking now. The society, the news, and the government has sadly decreased my sense of belonging towards my own country. I remember how much I loved this country when I was in elementary school. Fun fact, back then I really wanted to be a president. Maybe that sounds funny to you guys, but I'm not joking at all. The reason was so pure. I wanted to make Indonesia better. Not because of the fame, not because of the dignity that the president or any other people in the government have, nor even because of the money. But growing up, I decided to forget those dreams. I come up with the thought, this country is too messed up for me to make any change. I won't be able to make any difference to this country. The corruption, the social economic gap, or even the latest case in which some of the governments keep on forgetting their promises and discriminate against the nation. But my dad words were right too. As much as I hate things happening in this country, I shouldn't hate my country. Then I concluded my question. Why should I love Indonesia? The answer is very simple. Because Indonesia needs me. Indonesia needs you. Hating Indonesia and running away from it won't help anything. It wouldn't change the situation at all. Instead, we as the young generation is the one who have the power to change Indonesian current situation and also the future. If we decided to be apathetic, it will just worsen the situation. We need to love our country regardless to make a better Indonesia in the future. You don't have to be a president to make a better change for Indonesia. It is not the only way. What you need to do is to look out for this country, to care for it, to love it, and more importantly, keep your sense of belonging. And before I finish my speech, I would like to quote a few words in Indonesian by the very first Vice President of Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Hatta, which I always keep in my mind. Jatuh bangunnya negara ini hanya sangat bergantung dari bangsa ini sendiri. Semakin pudar persatuan dan kepedulian, Indonesia hanyalah sekedar nama dan seuntayan pulau di peta. Or in English, it translated to the ups and downs of Indonesia depends on the nation itself. If the nation unity and concern fade away, Indonesia means nothing. Nothing more than just a name and a string of islands on the map. My name is Salsabila Haris from Industrial Engineering 2019. Excuse myself, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Salsa, for the speech. Next will be followed by 2 minutes taking time by the judge to give feedback for Salsa. Okay, Karo, you can give your feedback now. Halo,
Alright.
Karo.
Yeah. So while I'm first seeing I feel
I'm sorry.
Halo, Kak. Sorry, we cannot hear your voice.
Halo.
Iya, Kak. Halo. You may speak now ya.
Tadi nggak kedengaran sama sekali dari awal.
Iya.
Iya, Kak. Nggak kedengeran.
Halo. Oke, gue mulai dari awal lagi ya. So look, Salsabila. The fact that I applaud you for loving Indonesia, but this speech actually feels like a really shallow attempt to express your nationalism and national identity. Well, look, it's not enough for you to just serve me an array of country loving mantra or niche to compel me that you love the country so much, because if so, this kind of feels like a ini sumpah ini mirip banget retorik debat Indo, tapi lo cuma translate di English. When the fact that you started your speeches with such a good, compelling problem, omnibus law and coronavirus, quarantine, so on and so forth, you can explore the idea of that, like let's say omnibus law, and on how it affects nationalism of Indonesia, but not in the term of the word of nationalism, mana or NKRI nilai mati, but the truth and reasoning behind it, or on how coronavirus seems to be hindering this kind of idea in the first place, on how coronavirus, like let's say, hindering a lot of political, a lot of social issue, and on how this kind of issue will lead to a rendering a deteriorating value of oneself, national identity, so on and so forth. But kalau misalnya lo pengen gue jujur, this feels like a wasted almost 15 minutes time of you to just try to explain to me how much you love this country, when that's not enough. That's not what I want you to be, want you to do. So I guess that's it. I don't really have any question, because if I do have a question, it's gonna be how much you love your country, and I don't want to ask that.
Thank you.
Okay, Kado, thank you for the feedback. Next will be a 2-minute questioning time with the audience. So if the audience has any question, just unmute and ask the question. If there is no question by the audience, we'll just go on to the next participant. Okay, for the next participant is Aska Tania from class of 2020. Okay. So Aska, you have 15 minutes to deliver your speech. Your time start when you first speak.
Okay. Nationalism. What comes to your mind when I say nationalism? Today we are here not just to attend a game, but to hear voices from youth about nationalism. Dear honorable judges, committee, my beloved friends and seniors, good evening. My name is Aska from Industrial Engineering Major 2020. Nationalism, it is a thing that we should instill in our heart due to the long story of the colonialism that has happened in the past years. Our country means nothing without the voice of our past warriors, workers, scholars, men and women, even kids, which all of the people that I have said before have done their best in every good opportunities which has came to their lives. Every people, including you and me, each one of us carries on our shoulders not only the burden to do well for the sake of our nation, but also the burden to see that our nation grows and does well for the mankind's sake. As a humankind, we are born with social responsibility, which cannot be taken from us. We are born to contribute to the social community, which needs us to cope with social problems. Indonesia is a nation that always puts the common good at the first place. Deliberation, gotong royong, helping each other, and also our main slogan, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, has become the thing that should be in our soul as Indonesians. If we look back in time, this nation stands for the unity and unity of the heroes, those who take up arms and who fight through the word unite indiscriminately to fight for the rights of the nation. Unity is the nation's main weapon in liberating the nation. The hero's work is not just written, but based on high spirits and deep meaning. The hope placed by the nation in the details of the philosophical basis has been prepared for the successor of the nation as a hope for the good of this nation in the future. As millennials, we should always put our future on top of our priorities so that humanity will go further and build a better world for all of us. But before thinking about the humanity and before thinking about the world, we should prioritize our country first. We are built from many elements of society, different background and multiple ethnicities. Thus, we need to unite to achieve our national dreams, which written on our national constitution. With the spirit of gotong royong, people of this nation are exist to help, both internally and externally. And our internal, we can implement this spirit by giving a help for the people in need, teaching children which are lack of education, raising funds for the people who aren't able to pay for their medical services, and another kind things as well. We can also build a better economic system, which will not be a burden to the marginal. In external, we show that our nation does contribute to the society by raising funds for the countries which are in war, help the kids which are suffering for the malnutrition at Africa, and more which, if I mention all of them, I may not be able because there are so much and so many out there. We as a nation and also youth need to contribute to the world with all that we can give. If it's not us, then who will? My name is Aska, and thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Aska, for the amazing speech. Next will be 2 minutes thinking time for the judge to develop and construct feedback. Okay, Kado Carter, you may give your feedback now.
Okay. So I think kind of the same problem with the previous speaker, where you have tendency to explain to me what nationalism itself is not some sort of an abstract idea or some sort of state of the art kind of idea where you need hours, you need lots of minutes to explain to me what nationalism it is, because we know what it is. We've been taught about it since elementary school. We know what it's all about. The speech that you're supposed to be giving is a speech that should be manifested in what kind of real life issue we are facing right now, on how nationalism is within that kind of line, within the line of problem with that problem. like let's say feminism that is being brought by the first speaker, or you can bring some sort of issue like colorism issue or anti-China issue or many geopolitical problem or concern. And also the fact that this speech is not some sort of essay question of what you should do to prove your nationalism. This is not some sort of hero complex moment where you need to look up to every hero, every savior, every liberator or Indonesia in the umbrella of asas gotong royong and Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, because we are humans. We are so much more than that. We are so multifaceted. Stop trying to simplify us by just saying that we need to look up to our ancestor, our predecessor, so on and so forth, when the problem right now is different from the problem that is being faced back then in 1940s, so on and so forth. We have more issue right now. We have more diverse issue right now. So therefore, your speech energy should be directed at that, on how nationalism can be used to tackle that kind of problem, or on how nationalism is one of the core problem for this array of problem that exists within our society. I think that's all.
Thank you.
I don't have any question because it just seems like a clog of issue for me right now.
Okay, thank you, Kak Ricardo, for the feedback. Next will be a 2-minute Q&A session with the audience. So audience, if you have any question, just unmute and speak. Okay, if there's no question, I will count from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, next is next participant that will deliver his speech is Kak Dalif from class of 2018. Hello, Kak Dalif. Hello, Kak Dalif.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Okay.
Fantastic.
Kak Dalif, you have 15 minutes to deliver your speech. Your time start when you first talk.
Every year, in the middle of August, we see our glorious red and white flags being raised along the streets and in front of every building and houses across our country. Is this nationalism? Or is it when our fathers stand in the front line against the colonials with bamboo runting in their hand and courage in their heart, chanting the supreme war cry, freedom or death, merdeka atau mati? Is that nationalism? Honorable judges, committee, and my fellow comrades, nowadays, theme of global culture and recognition, it is so easy to get lost in the way you will give meaning to nationalism. In a world where globalism is praised all over, often the loyalty and devotion to our own country is the thing we most took for granted. Today, I would like to offer a new perspective of seeing nationalism, a view in which we do not only see nationalism as a matter of sentiment and pride, but rather a device for promoting our welfare as the citizens of a great country. Today, when we think about nationalism, I would like you to think about our local economy. And when we think about our local economy, I would like you to think about SECAS. That stands for shop, invest, contribute, advocate, and support. S is for shop. If you're faced with the choice of buying between items of similar quality, one being a renowned world brand that imports stuff, and one being an emerged local brand that produces locally, consider shopping locally. When you choose to shop at your local brand, we empower more citizens of your country to thrive and feed their families. Know that's nationalism. I is for invest. If you happen to have more than living paycheck to paycheck, consider investing a part of your wealth to your local business. To this day, our national stock market is still dominated by foreign capital by a significant amount. Even worse, most businesses in Indonesia can't even get access to the capital. I'm talking about our micro and small enterprises that make up over 98% of Indonesia's business scene. According to Bank Indonesia, 70% of those businesses are unbankable and thus having tough times finding capital from the bank. However, recent technological innovations like peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding has made it possible for us to help those in need for capital to thrive by investing our dimes directly to them. When you invest in your local business, you help them grow and create a greater economic impact on our country. Now that's nationalism. C is for contribute. If you're watching this, I believe that you're one of the brightest young men and women that this country ever has. I plead you to not to take it for granted. Consider contributing your skills and knowledge to the local business. If you're an expert on an area of knowledge, consider putting the local business at your career roadmap. Be an employee or consultant, contribute your expertise to the field. You will gain valuable experience while taking part in nurturing the local economy. Now, that's nationalism. Even better, if you have the entrepreneurship skills, the guts, and brilliant ideas, consider contributing to the local economy by starting a business. You will gain direct benefits while providing jobs for people in the country. Now, that's nationalism. A is for advocate. If you have raging spirit to defend the weak and marginalized stakeholders in a local business, consider advocating the workers. Laborers working for big firms in our country often get neglected while playing an essential role in growing the economy. Educate the workers for their white-collar company labor misconducts. Promote business that treat their employees fairly. By advocating, you help our local business to grow in a good way for our society. Now that's nationalism. S is for support. After doing all you can for the local economy, keep supporting them in the long run. Provide a constructive feedback should they do something wrong. Leave a good review and tell it to your relatives should they satisfy you with their services. Give your local business the moral support it needs for them to grow and rise in the highly competitive global economy. Now, that's nationalism. With all that being said, now, what's on your mind? Have you just realized that the local economy is one significant channel in which we can express our nationalism? I believe we all agree to that. As millennials, as the Indonesian youth, as the generation that will hold this nation alive and intact, we need to be able to translate nationalism to our own ways. Stick ass, shop, invest, contribute, advocate, support. Today, we've only talked about a few aspects of nationalism. The rest should and must be our daily agendas. Spread the awareness, talk about it in our peers, tuck it on our essays, think about it when picking out careers. Now, what story will you tell to the others when being asked about nationalism? Is it about the soldiers fighting in the front line against the enemy with their bambu runcing? Or is it about raising a flag high up in the sky every 17th of August? Regardless of the things that initially came to your mind when it comes to nationalism, let's start thinking about expressing nationalism by improving our local economy. And when you think about our local economy, think SECAS. My name is Dafa Alif, and I rest my case.
Nice. Thank you, Kadafa Ali, for the speech. Now I will start 2 minutes ticking time for the judge to give feedback. The 2 minutes time starts now. Okay, Kado Cardo, you have 4 minutes to give your feedback. Halo, Kado Cardo?
Oh yeah.
Okay, your time starts now, Kak.
Okay, look. So during the entirety of your speech, you already have a problem that we need to support a local merchant because they're struggling just to keep up. But the only problem I have with this thesis idea is oversimplification of issue. Because first thing first, you need to acknowledge on how much level of helping is necessary in the first place in here, and you need to, furthermore, you need to be able to portray what kind of market competition is going to happen, will likely to happen this kind of if this kind of notion is prevalent in the first place. And furthermore, on whether it is okay with outside and slash foreign investment, because they are actually one of the biggest revenue income for this country in the first place. Meanwhile, I applaud you for giving a both lines towards local merchant, but you also need to consider this kind of issue. And furthermore, on more a nationalism level, during the entirety of your speech, you champion the idea that we have many methods of helping local business like, let's say, shop, promote, advocate, so on and so forth. But you also have to acknowledge that this fact, that the opinion that this jargon create a disparity, level of someone else's nationalism, level of national identity, where because someone can say, look, I'm better than you in doing things towards Indonesia, which in itself can be problematic. So therefore, you need to explain and kind of exploit this idea more, so on and so forth. I think that's the only thing that I can quite grasp during my 2 minutes time to prepare for your feedback. So I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Kado Cardo, for the feedback. So for the next session, will be the questionings, the Q&A session with the audience. So if there's any audience who wants to ask questions, just unmute your mic and ask the question directly. Okay, so if there's no question from the audience, I will start counting backward from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, that marks the end of this session, this speech competition. First of all, I would like to thank you for all the participants, and they did their best efforts and share what it means to be to have nationalism in this day of age, where the meaning and definition has definitely morphed into something else. And I would also like to thank the judge for giving so many constructive feedbacks and insights, not only to the participant, but to all of us about how to conduct speech and maybe also how to conduct good arguments. And last but not least, I would like to thank all the audience for spending their time here and supporting the contingents. And if you have any, this will mark the end of the session. If you have any other business after this, please do so. But before we end the session, let's take a photo for documentation. So everybody who able to open their camera, please do so. Yuk, di open yuk kameranya sebelum kelar. Maybe I'll wait till 8:15 before taking the picture. Or maybe 8:14. It's too long. Karena panelnya 2 halaman, jadi gue bakal nge-screenshotnya 2 kali ya. Jadi post 2 kali, guys. Oke. Untuk slide yang pertama, mulai ya. 3, 2, 1. Oke, untuk slide yang kedua. Sebentar. Oke, slide kedua. Mulai ya. 3, 2, 1. Oke, terima kasih sudah meluangkan waktunya hadirin yang terhormat, juri Kak Rokardo dan juga partisipan yang keren-keren banget, Kak Almi, terus Salsa, Aska dan juga Kak Dalif. This will be the end and this is it from me. Terima kasih. Jika ada yang ada kesibukan setelah ini, monggo udah boleh di live sekarang. Terima kasih.
Thank you semuanya.
Iya.
Atur nuhun.
Yoi.
Thank you
Siap.
semuanya.
Ya, makasih semuanya. Pindah ke Fordep, siap. Terima kasih.
Yan,